Hey guys, so I just wanted to drop a quick update. If you remember from my last video, I had explained David the Watchman's timeline, and David's timeline began on the Jonah eclipse of April 8th. And so from that date, he just adds the 40-day warning period from the Jonah story, and that takes you to May 18th. And at that point, he hands off his timeline to the Noah story. And so he adds to May 18th the 7-day warning to get on the ark, and that takes you to May 25th. So that's the date that the flood began, if we're following the story. And amazingly, that date of May 25th was the 17th day of the second month on the rabbinical calendar. So that amazingly matches the date given in Genesis 7:11 for the beginning of the flood. And at that point in the Noah story, there are 40 days of rain, and that takes you to Genesis 7:17, which is the 177th verse of the Bible. And in that verse, the ark is lifted up off the earth. So from that date of, that flood start date of May 25th, you just add the 40 days of rain, and that takes you to July 4th. Now, since July 4th corresponds to 315 on the Enochian calendar, which is the same date per Exodus 19 that the Israelites arrived at Mount Sinai, we can now hand off this timeline to that Mount Sinai story in its timeline. Okay, so now let's take a look at the third month on the Enochian calendar. And so we see here, July 4th was the 15th day, and that was the date that the Israelites first arrived at Mount Sinai. And then if you go on to read Exodus 19, the Lord explains to Moses to be ready on the third day, because that's the date that he's going to descend on the mountain in a cloud. So depending on how you count, that's either going to be the 17th or 18th of the third month, which corresponds to July 6th or July 7th. And that's Saturday and Sunday of this weekend. Now it says up here Tuesday and Wednesday, but I explained in my last video that these days of the week it's an Enochian calendar thing. It does not correspond to the days of the week on the Gregorian calendar. Okay, so you can just ignore that. But anyway, so the Mount Sinai narrative now gives us these two new dates that we can look at as potentially corresponding to the rapture. Third month, 17th and 18th days, corresponding to July 6th and 7th. And actually, last night, Brother G44 and I plugged these dates into the big symmetrical diagram and found some really, really astonishing alignments. So that's what I'd like to show you right now. So here is the big symmetrical diagram that most of you are probably at least somewhat familiar with. So when you add those dates as a new leaf node here on the right side, the first thing I noticed right off the bat was that after these dates, 177 days remain in the Gregorian calendar year. So that is, once again, telegraphing the 177th verse of the Bible, Genesis 7:17, where the ark lifts from the earth. And then something amazing that Brother G44 found is once you add this leaf node here, and of course you have to add its corresponding mirrored pair on the other side of this symmetrical structure, you then end up with a diagram that has two halves of 177 days each. So this entire diagram now is telegraphing the 177, because you've got the 177 day span on the right, and then you've got the 177 day span on the left. And then another thing Brother G44 showed me, which I found frankly miraculous, is that mirrored pair of the new dates we added over here on the left side happens to land on July 17th, 2023. So that's 717, corresponding to Genesis 7:17, the 177th verse of the Bible. So this is, once again, it's matching that 177, telegraphing the 177th verse of the Bible. But in this case, it's not even just the number; it's actually the verse of the Bible that matches. How does this happen? I mean, this thing has got to be, there's some kind of divine math going on here. So this entire diagram now is telegraphing the 177th verse of the Bible. From the beginning leaf node to the end leaf node, it's also telegraphing the 177, and then all throughout, just the whole diagram itself. On the left side, the 177 day span, and on the right side, 177 day span. So it's pretty amazing. And this is all on top of the fact that there were exactly 177 days between the wedding ring eclipse back in October and the April 8th second great American eclipse, or the Jonah eclipse. And that wedding ring eclipse came right after the 177th Enochian day of the year. So it's really amazing in so many ways. And going back to that first leaf node there, that happens to be Enochian 329. And so that's telegraphing the 276 sign, because that's like the third constellation to the ninth constellation. And we've seen that number 329 pop up so much in studying the numerics of that sign. And then its mirrored leaf node pair, the leaf node that we just added here, that happens to be exactly 192 days after the 276 sign. And remember, that sign was characterized by the sun and the moon being separated by 192 degrees. So even the 276 sign seems to be baked into the numerical dynamics of this diagram, which is really amazing. And if you thought it couldn't get any crazier than that, then check this out. This new date that we added is exactly 9 months and 19 days after 919, the date of the child asteroid Revelation 12 sign. And since this diagram is now 2 halves of 177 days each, that means the span of the entire diagram is 354 days. Now we know that number because, remember, Strong's Greek 354 means a taking up, and Strong's Hebrew 354 means stag, which is used in Song of Songs chapter 2. The voice of my beloved, behold, he comes leaping upon the mountains, skipping upon the hills. My beloved is like a roe or a young stag. Now get this. This date is also exactly 354 weeks after the 2017 Revelation sign. So just try wrapping your head around all this. These alignments are just insane. I mean, just simply insane. So let's take a look now at the calendar view again, and I'd like to talk about the new moon for a moment. So today, July 5th, is the new moon. I guess that's the 16th or the third month on this calendar. And if you look at 1 Samuel 20, verse 5, it says, behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat, but let me go that I may hide myself in the field unto the third day at even. So, third day from the new moon. Okay, so if the new moon is July 5th, the third day would be July 7th. Okay, because July 5th would be the first day. So that matches. So July 7th at even, it says third day at even. So that's kind of on the tail end of this little 2-day date range I'm looking at. But it still matches. And also, if you look at that date, that is 318. Okay, Sivan 18, 318. And 318 happens to also be the reverse of Psalm 81:3. And remember, Psalm 81:3 is, blow up the trumpet in the new moon in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. So isn't that interesting as well? All right, now let's take a look at the sky real fast. So I'm looking from the perspective of the United States East Coast. The new moon is well into Gemini at this point. It's almost aligned with the sun. It's almost completely new. So the sun and the moon are now together in Gemini. And Venus is there as well, still in Gemini. Mercury's in Cancer, the crab. Crab represents heaven. The sun is still at 104 degrees of longitude on the ecliptic and will be until tomorrow. So from this scene here, I mean, it looks like the rapture still looks very good. It's still imminent. It could still happen today or tonight. However, even if it doesn't, we now have a very good framework of understanding for rapture all the way through the weekend until Sunday, until July 7th. Another thing worth noting about July 7th is that on the rabbinical calendar, it's the 1st of Tammuz, okay? And that is 4:1, which telegraphs Revelation 4:1. After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking with me, which said, come up hither. So that would be a very nice day to rapture, just because of that. And on top of all that, we've got the water about to break there in Corpus Christi. Seems to be also lined up with the dates that we're looking at here, because it looks like it's going to be arriving around Sunday, okay, Sunday the 7th. And Corpus Christi, of course, means body of Christ. So if the water is breaking, for the body of Christ, is the body of Christ about to be born. So anyway, that was my little update. So let's keep looking up, brothers and sisters. This weekend may turn out to be very interesting. So thank you for watching. God bless, and Maranatha.